The diner was loud, but no one was listening. Plates clattered. Coffee machines hissed. Laughter bounced off greasy walls. Yet behind the counter, a young waitress stood frozen, gripping a tray so hard her knuckles turned white. Her name didn't matter to the customers. To them, she was just another uniform, another refill, another, "Hey, miss." But tonight, something felt wrong. The man sitting in the corner booth had been watching her since she clocked in. Not the normal kind of stare. This one didn't wander. It waited. His suit was expensive, his watch brighter than the diner's lights. He smiled every time she looked away, like he owned the moment. She'd learned to survive by ignoring men like him. At least she thought she had. When she approached the table to take his order, he didn't look at the menu. He looked at her chest, then her face, then slowly leaned back. "You work hard," he said calmly. "I like that." She forced a professional smile and asked for his order. He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up. The diner quieted. Not fully, just enough for discomfort to creep in. He stepped closer, invading her space, his voice dropping. "Let's see who can save you." Before she could move, before she could breathe, his hand grabbed the collar of her shirt and ripped it open. Gasps erupted. A tray crashed to the floor. She screamed, instinctively covering herself, humiliation burning hotter than fear. Her legs shook. Her mind screamed to run, but her body refused to obey. The man laughed. No one moved. Not the manager. Not the customers. Not the men pretending to check their phones. Corporate policies hung heavier than conscience. The manager finally spoke, his voice thin. "Sir, maybe you should—" The man turned. "Sit down." And the manager did. That was when the door opened. The bell above it rang once, clean, sharp. 5 men walked in. Leather jackets, heavy boots, tattoos crawling up their necks and arms like living ink. The room stiffened instantly. Chairs scraped. Someone whispered a name they weren't sure they should say out loud. Hell's Angels. The waitress didn't see them at first. Her eyes were locked on the floor, tears dripping onto the tiles. She felt exposed, small, erased. The man in the suit smirked. He turned slowly toward the newcomers. "Well," he said loudly, spreading his arms. "Perfect timing. Let's see who can save you now." One of the tattooed men stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't threaten. He didn't raise his voice. He took off his jacket and held it out, not to the man, but to the shaking waitress. She hesitated. The man nodded once. She took it, wrapped it around herself, and for the first time that night she breathed. The suited man scoffed. "You boys lost? This is a private matter?" The tattooed stranger finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "No," he said. "This is a public one." The man laughed again, louder now. "You think you scare me? I own half the franchises in this city. I could buy this place, fire everyone, and forget your faces by morning." The tattooed man smiled slightly. "That's funny," he replied. "Because we came here to remember yours." The room held its breath. The waitress felt something shift. Not safety yet, but possibility. The manager stood up suddenly, panic in his eyes. "Please, let's not cause trouble." "Sir, maybe we can handle this quietly." Quietly. The word tasted bitter. The waitress looked at him then. Really looked. She remembered the overtime he never paid. The complaints he buried. The girls who quit crying. The way he always said, "Don't make waves." Corporate betrayal didn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wore a name tag. The tattooed men sat down, calm, patient, like they had all the time in the world. One of them ordered coffee. Another looked around the diner and said softly, "Funny thing about silence. It remembers everything." The suited man's smile finally faltered. He didn't know it yet, but this wasn't about fists or fear. This was about witnesses and kindness. The waitress stood there, wrapped in leather that smelled like oil and rain, realizing something she never had before. She wasn't invisible anymore. And someone had finally decided to stay. The suited man tried to laugh again, but it came out wrong, thinner this time, like air leaking from a tire. He glanced around the diner, searching for allies, authority, anything that would return the balance he'd enjoyed just moments earlier. What he saw instead were eyes finally lifted from plates, phones slowly lowered, silence sharpening into attention. The tattooed man who had given his jacket spoke again, still calm. He didn't threaten. He didn't insult. He simply stated facts. He said that what happened had already been seen. He said the cameras above the counter were still recording. He said the waitress wasn't alone anymore, whether she believed it or not. The suited man snapped back that none of it mattered. He claimed money could erase footage, buy silence, rewrite stories. He said he'd done it before. The word before echoed harder than anything else he'd said. That was when another tattooed man leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. He explained, almost kindly, that the diner wasn't the only place with cameras. That phones were recording too. That witnesses didn't disappear just because someone wished them away. He added that fear worked best in private. And this wasn't private anymore. The manager tried one last time to regain control. He apologized to the suited man, not to the waitress. He suggested they call this a misunderstanding. The waitress felt something inside her finally snap, not loudly, but cleanly. She said no. Just one word, steady and clear. No. The suited man turned on her, anger flashing through his polished mask. He called her ungrateful. He reminded her she needed this job. He promised consequences. The threats rolled out automatically, rehearsed from years of getting away with them. The tattooed man stood. The room stiffened, expecting violence. None came. He pulled out a folded piece of paper and slid it across the table toward the suited man. It listed dates, locations, names, former employees, settlements disguised as resignations, security footage copied, not erased. The waitress wasn't the first. She was just the one it happened to in front of the wrong people. The suited man's face drained of color. He asked who they were. The answer was simple. They were men who ate here every week. Men who watched waitresses get mistreated while managers looked away. Men who'd buried friends who didn't survive silence. They weren't heroes. They were witnesses who got tired of being quiet. Police sirens grew closer. Someone had finally made the call. The manager began sweating, realizing the paper mentioned him. 2. Signatures, emails, compliance bought with promotions. Corporate betrayal laid bare without shouting a single accusation. The suited man tried to leave. He didn't make it past the door. When the police arrived, there was no chaos. No punches. Just statements, phones handed over, footage secured. The waitress gave hers last. Her voice shook once, then steadied. Every word mattered. The suited man was escorted out, smaller somehow, stripped of the power he'd worn like armor. The manager followed, no longer protected by policy or position. The diner felt different after. Quieter but lighter. The tattooed men paid their bill. One of them told the waitress she didn't owe anyone bravery for what happened. Another told her kindness wasn't weakness. It was courage without noise. Before they left, the man who gave her his jacket asked if she was okay. She said she would be. After that night, the story spread, but not the way people expected. It wasn't about bikers or fear. It was about people who stayed. About silence broken not by rage but by care. About a woman who refused to disappear and strangers who refused to look away. The waitress didn't become famous. She didn't need to. She found a better job. One where respect wasn't conditional. The diner changed owners. Policies changed too, written by people who understood accountability. As for the tattooed men, they kept coming in on Thursdays. Same booth. Same coffee. No applause followed them. They didn't want it. Because real heroes don't announce themselves. They show up when it matters. And sometimes that's enough to save someone.